What's up guys, Subzeric here, and it's patch day. Patch 14.9 just dropped with some huge changes to champions, to augments. Biggest one that I think a lot of people are thinking about is all these new artifacts that have been added. Forget how many are added, like 20 new artifacts or something like that. So there are a ton of new strategies that exist now, and then just some buffs to, existing champions, some reroll comps opening back up. Kog'Maw is a little bit better. Some new reroll comps opening up, and that's actually what I want to talk about in this video is a new reroll comp opening up that saw a teeny tiny bit of play on last patch, but never really came into its own, never was a comp that a ton of people wanted to really play around. And that's Alune reroll. So we'll get to it as we get further into the game. But of course, we're watching Dishsoap. Let me just get rid of my cam for a second so you can see his scores already on the day. He's someone who I feel like always does really, really well on the first day of patches, just because he plays really, really solid TFT. He also understands the why of TFT. He knows why certain comps, certain items, certain units are strong, and that allows him to do really, really good things when he plays TFT. He knows what will be broken because he understands why things are broken. Love the early scout around just to see what's going on. Nobody really committed to anything too hard yet. We pick up Band of Thieves here, which is just a solid augment in general. We also have this Yasuo 2 to play around, so we are going to play this Yasuo 2 with this TG and a double Zyra backline. Zyra not nerfed at all this patch. I feel like that's a little bit of a miss because we've talked infinitely about how strong this Zyra unit is, but hey, maybe they'll be patch and nerf for a little bit because I know they're planning some kind of like hotfix patch, just because I know it's a weird, complicated thing, but essentially they couldn't get all the changes they wanted in this patch because China patched early. It's kind of a weird situation, but in any case, we might see a B patch potentially. What we're seeing in this shop is an Alune, and Dishsoap immediately, with the buffs to Alune, she got a little bit of extra attack speed. They also buffed vertical Umbral at 6 and like even higher Umbral if you can get all the way to 9 Umbral. So I think Dishsoap already says, you know what, maybe we'll play around Umbral this game, maybe we will play around Alune this game with an early Morello's. The only downside to playing around this setup here is that I feel like Alune really, really wants good frontline so that she can get multiple casts off. Because the problem here is like she'll cast once on a unit or on a line of units, and then the units will start walking up, and then she'll cast another time on like another small clump of units, but the clump of units has changed because they've walked up, so it becomes a lot harder for Alune to actually like do work when she's not having the strongest of front lines. That's why you'd really, really like to be able to play around stuff like Yorick and have like a Malphite 2 or like a Cho'Gath 2 to play around, but the Yasuo 2 is at least some amount of tankiness, but not as much as, say, a Behemoth. But you can see a fight like this, where we actually have pretty solid frontline, we destroy everything. Just the double Alune cast also is not bad either. Also note that we sold our bench here, selling the Yone. Looks like Dishsoap still is not really that much of a Yone believer, and so, yeah, he sells off the Yone and says, I'll get Yone later, but I don't need to go for Yone 3. Now, the one thing that makes Dishsoap say, I actually really want to play this comp, Izzy picks up a spat off Carousel here. He has Glove open. That's Umbral spat. A little bit sad that we didn't hold on to the Yone because we would have had 4 Umbral, but, we couldn't have possibly known that there was a spat on Carousel. But getting an Umbral spat makes you really excited to actually play this comp. It allows you to get to 6 Umbral a lot faster than if, you just had to do it naturally. You do need 3 spats to get to 9 Umbral, so we'll see if that's something that we can get to this game, but it's certainly not the easiest thing to do. And yeah, he's just going to slam the Umbral spat immediately. This is another fight where it's a little bit hard for Alune to just get all these kills. I mean, we're fighting a pretty strong board here, so, it's unsurprising that we end up losing this fight here. It's also nice that he gets to reroll this 3 cost in the Volibear here. And he does pick up a Yone here, which allows him, hey, to get the 4 Umbral in. He's going to sell out of the Yasuo now in order to make 20 gold because he doesn't really care that much about his streak. Going to actually fit back in a Yasuo 1 because he thinks that's stronger than the Kog'Maw. I agree with this. Once again, the front line is really, really nice in this setup. And Invoker early is just like nothing really, whereas the Duelist, at least it'll do something. And also, yeah, just Yasuo, probably a better unit than Kog'Maw 1, though who's to say with the changes to Kog'Maw. But yeah, this is not the best opener. Win, loss, loss. At least we keep the 2 streak because they added back in 2 streaks last patch. But not the best opener of all time, and we don't have that much as far as 1 cost to play around, which is the scary part. We'd really love to have like a Darius 2 and this Yasuo 2 in our setup here, because now it's going to be hard to find those units later. So I just want to stress that this is not an amazing spot to actually be playing Umbral from, which is why the fact that this was actually a pretty solid game surprised me pretty hard. And I think Dishsoap during this game was saying like, look, if you guys see me go bot 4, don't say that Umbral is bad. Just because just if I go bot 4 from this spot, it's because it's an opener diff, not necessarily an Umbral diff. He gets dropped Spark components here, which is certainly something that you could look at slamming here. But he's actually going to throw the rod on to the Alune here. I thought behind Spark Slam is, you're going to play Silas later. You want to throw Spark onto Silas. It's MR Shred for your Alune. But looks like he's not actually interested in that. He wants a rod item for Alune here. Branching out is pretty much untakeable here. I actually get really surprised because he rolls left and right before he rolls branching out, which is wild to me. Golden Remover, I think, is a decent augment, and it's really, really nice with these TGs. So I think it's pretty reasonable to make, or to take, and it also allows us to make an item here, depending on what we actually want to slam here. And I have no recollection of what Dishsoap makes in this spot. I will say, sometimes I don't watch the games before, and this is a game I actually watched live and then said, oh, this is, an interesting game. I want to VOD review it. So I have actually seen this game through. So I have some, I'm not completely going off instinct with these predictions here. But yeah, Dishsoap opts to slam nothing here, which puts him in a slightly scary spot. He also opts to not level here, just saying I'm basically not necessarily full open, but almost going to full open here. About an Anvil or Gold here, I feel like it has to be Anvil. Yep, I like this. He's going to take the tier here just to make the Shojin and throw it on Alune immediately. So in Dishsoap's POV, it looks like he's really interested in going Shojin on this Alune. Just getting some kind of mana item on her. Makes sense. Shojin, Adaptive Helm, probably both fine. I don't think blue buff is that good on her, but, makes sense. Get a mana item onto her, get her casting. She's an AP carry, backline unit. Casting is usually a good thing for those type of units. But yeah, you'll see here, this is another loss. We're going to be down to 5 loss. This should be a decent loss if that Alune gets another cast off. Yeah, it looks like it wasn't that bad. He's going to start team building out, putting all the Umbral units in. I love, love, love this. And now the question is just what do we pick up off Carousel here? He's just going to go for a Tier Lee Sin. I also don't know what he's building towards as far as the items. If he wants, I mean, this is either Archangels or Adaptive Helm. Both I think are probably fine, but I'm curious to see what he actually wants to build for here. And yeah, he just goes the Archangels. Looks like he rates that decently highly on Alune, which is an interesting idea here. And now he's going to fit the Lee Sin onto the board. He's going to fit Nico onto the board for a second and then say, actually, maybe not. Going to get Behemoth onto the board. I like this for more frontline. I don't think the Arcanist is really worth trying to fit all that stuff. And interestingly here, Dishsoap, he could theoretically level here, and it would be pretty cheap, but he's on a 5 loss. He wants to actually lose this fight, and he actually just barely wins it with the power of Alune. So I like the not level here, just to play for loss streak, though, normally you would want to, actually. It normally would be kind of free to level in this position, but he opts to actually not go for the level just because he doesn't need to win, right? He's on a 5 loss, not anymore, though. He could actually level here as well, and yeah, I would support a level here just for this Yone here. It's quite cheap. You're losing you're losing 2 gold. You're losing 1 gold of interest to level here, and you'd like to protect your streak. But looks like he thinks adding the second Yone isn't really going to do that much. It's also possible that maybe Dishsoap doesn't know if he wants to sit on 7 and roll or if he wants to push 8 this game. So maybe the idea is that he doesn't want to over level that much here. By leveling here, he'd prefer to do this, and he might have to roll a decent bit on 7. He actually makes the TG onto the Alune, which kind of would be tragic, except we have the Golden Remover, but a little scary, but, nothing to worry about because it's, because we didn't get punished because we have the Golden Remover, but a little scary for a second there. And yeah, we kind of just have to, I would assume we have to roll a bit here to try to pick up enough upgrades for our board to be good. Looks like he is confident that this board is decent enough. Also, he's working on just moving all these items around. The TG item's fantastic on the lease, and this is one of the reasons why that this Golden Remover augment is so nice in this setup, is anytime you get a TG, you can move it over to a slightly better unit. So the BT Hodge, fantastic on Lee Sin. He does actually stomp through this fight, so I think looking at this fight, hey, maybe 47 HP, maybe that's enough, and that he can just push levels on this. This is something that the best players do really, really well, is know when their board is stable enough. Burrow Crab could get us there, but I think Dishsoap wants combat here. And yes, he finds an augment, which this is going to be a really fun augment to talk about because this is Capricious Forge, but this is Capricious Forge with all of the new Ornn artifacts. So each round we're going to get to talk about some of these new Ornn artifacts. If you guys haven't seen them, there are some really, really cool ones out there. So we have 2 new ones, Wit's End, which gives you just magic damage on hit. And then Horizon Focus is really cool. Anytime you stun a unit, you deal 30% of their max health. So it's kind of crazy on units. The examples I've seen so far, like Lux, where she's going to stun 2 units with her ability, and that's going to do 30% of their max HP each time. Also, like Volibear, who gets a lot of stuns off, so pretty wild. 2 new ones as well. Blightning Jewel here, which is kind of a weird one. It's for like Teemo. You want to throw it onto like Teemo and units that do AP a lot of magic damage, because when you do magic damage, it reduces the target's MR, and then once you get to 0 MR, you increase your own. You give yourself mana when you reduce their magic resist below 0, which doesn't exist, so it just keeps it at 0 and gives you mana. Yeah, it's a pretty crazy one. And then the other one there was the new Prowler's Claw, which will make you dash to backline after getting a kill, which is also really, really cool. Unit-wise here, we just have to take the Silas. Getting Silas, allowing us to play around 6 Umbral would be really, really nice. You kind of have to do this. Also, this way that we picked up is actually pretty nice because it can get us to these Alunes. So, now we have 5 Alunes. We pick up an Udyr here. We just need to roll down and find some 2-star units to play around, holding a lot of different options here. Flex gameplay is good in TFT. We're holding the Nautiluses. We're holding the Ornns, just whatever we can hit here. Now that we have the Lee Sin, we can slow a little bit, but he still wants to roll down to pick up some upgrades. Finds the Alune 2. So now we have 6 Alunes at this point, and in 3 rounds we're going to get another one, so that's going to bring us up to 7, which is fantastic. But the big call out this roll down is hitting that Lee Sin 2 and Flex TFT. We hit the Lee Sin 2, we're going to put the Lee Sin 2 on our board, even though he's not like, he's just a duelist on this board. It's not, the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. But he's fine. He's good enough. He's 2-star frontline, which is really valuable. We're going to continue to roll down a bit, and we pick up an Udyr pair here, which is really interesting because now we have a lot of different options. One, we could just high roll and hit an Udyr, 3% odds, not impossible. 2, we could duplicate this Udyr, and we just have to wait 4 more rounds at this point, which is a lot of rounds, but we could potentially get to that. Or 3, I don't actually have a number 3. Those are really the 2 options as far as finding Udyr 2. I guess 3 is we could just miss on Udyr 2, but how sad would that be? But we now have a lot of stuff to roll for, which means we're going to continue rolling on 8. We pick up another Alune here. So we kind of just are forced to roll on 8 because we have the Alune to hit, we have the Silas to hit, we have the Udyr to hit. That's basically it. He also talks about how he wants to put Janna in over the Hui once we duplicate again, which makes a lot of sense. Janna fits in perfectly with the synergies here, especially with the Lee Sin, and is also just a good unit. Now, the crazy thing here, this is the one thing that, someone in my YouTube comments will guaranteed here say. Also, what would you guys make in this position? I think Dishsoap makes the most reasonable slam in this spot, which is Hodge Titan's Resolve, but an interesting little puzzle there because you have the removers, you can move items however you want, but 3 item Udyr here is fantastic. But yeah, this is the one thing that people in my YouTube comments will yap about and say, well, this game doesn't count because he high rolled one thing, which, I mean, hey, Udyr 2 on 8 is certainly a high roll. I won't disagree with that. But still, I think this game is really fun to watch because you can see, now that we have the Udyr 2, we're about to hit this Alune 2 and get to play around that. We're 36 HP. We're stuck, well, kind of stuck on 8, where we have to, build all of our econ back up from this point, but our board is quite strong. We also get some really, really cool options as far as moving items around. Like, Dishsoap this round decides to put the Wit's End Mana Zane over onto the Udyr because of the power of Wit's End on Udyr, right? He's going to, transform into Tiger Stance, go auto, and the Wit's End is going to do a ton of work on him, though he does end up kind of like running to backline and getting stuck somehow with his own targeting, so he kind of trolls this fight, but I do think this is pretty smart, and this is something that Dishsoap does a lot for the rest of the game, is move these TGs and items around depending on what makes sense here. He has the Suspicious Trenchcoat and the Lichbane. If you guys don't know, Lichbane, similar to Lichbane from League, after you cast your ability, you do extra magic damage, but Suspicious Trenchcoat, this is a crazy new artifact. When a unit drops below, I think it's 50% HP, they split, they die and split into 3 versions of themselves with less HP. So see this, Udyr splits into 3 Udyrs, and what's crazy as well is because they have the Ornn TG on them, they get their own Ornn TG items, so they all roll different items. This setup with Udyr, I think, is so crazy, especially with the Ornn TG as well. We get bonus defensive item on Carousel, which I don't think really matters. We're just looking for whatever item that we want here. I don't know, most of our units are itemized already. So I don't know, he's gonna go for like redemption here or something, just to beef up the front line a little bit more. Yeah, there's nothing you're crazy about here, I don't think. You can just throw that onto one of our frontliners that's unitemized. We get Mittens here, which makes Udyr a little bit smaller and also gives him Immunity to being chilled and damage reduction, I believe, and attack speed. I think those are the stats that it gives. Forgive me, this is, day one of all of these artifacts, but I looked at them, before the patch came out, so I think I have them all, at least a general idea of what they do here. This is actually a pretty tough fight just because this Triss jumps our backline and dodges a lot of our Alune cast. But look, once we've hit the Alune 3 and, obviously stabilize frontline with the Udyr 2, our board is actually crazy. Like, a lot of these fights are not even close. He sees the Zhonya's here and says, I don't really want Zhonya's to be on my Udyr because it's a pretty repetitive effect, so I'm going to move these items over back to Udyr and then move the Zhonya's onto Sylas. Makes perfect sense. I love, love, love this juggling of items. And then, we have the TG onto Lee Sin, which is basically going to stay on Lee Sin unless we roll something that's, like, amazing for someone else, and then we can move items over. Our Udyr gets potted here, but it's fine. Udyr does a ton of work, and Alune just one-tap in backline with these casts. She is just doing a ton of work every fight, and at this point we can look to push 9. This could allow us to get more Dragon Lords in. It allows us just to put 5 costs on the board, like maybe some kind of like Sage in somehow, though like a little bit awkward, but maybe something that could be done here. But yeah, I mean, we've made it from 0 gold at the start of stage 5 to being level 9 here pretty quickly, honestly. Oh, that's the other thing to talk about is exalted exists in this game. I think Diana and Lux are both exalted, so that would be, and I think it's Alune is the last one. He decides to move this item over to the Sylas. This is a new crazy item here where your auto attack stun, and it gives you a ton of stats, but the downside is it locks you at 0.5 attack speed. So you can't attack more than, you attack basically once every 2 seconds, which is very, very slow. We also start to see this game who our arch nemesis is going to be, and this is this Fated player. Our board is pretty slow at killing stuff, and so having a Fated player in our pool is really, really annoying. We finally end up picking up the set this far into the game, so we're going to throw some items onto him, get him on the board, get him stacking up. Also, it's just Yone is just not a very good unit, so playing around the set feels a lot better. But yeah, I mean, look at this board in action with, a lot of stuff 2-starred. The Alune just does insane damage. The Udyr also is a really, really nice kind of duo carry, though also the Sylas is a huge duo carry in his own right. He opts to actually get exalted in here, like I was talking about. Oh, the other option is, yeah, Aphelios, I guess. But yeah, we play the Diana, we play the Aphelios here. 2 kind of crummy units. Like, we're basically playing 2 reverse Fawns, people say, where you're basically playing units on your board that don't do anything, but you get exalted on a level 9 board, which is pretty chill. Also, the Diana is Dragon Lord, so it's not like the end of the world. But man, look at that Alune damage in this fight. Just hitting the entire backline, buffing your backline as well. She just does it all. Off carousel here, there is another Umbral spat, but sadly, like I was talking about, we need 3 Umbral spats to actually get there, so just a bit hard to actually get to. The Heavenly spat makes a lot more sense. This will allow us to get the Wukong in pretty easily and to just play for Heavenly. He also gets the Lux in, like I was talking about, over the Aphelios, just because she's a better unit. She has CC. Aphelios has really nothing going on. So yeah, we just have to figure out like how we actually want to fit Heavenly on this board. The main idea is obviously putting the Wukong in, but the question is, what are you cutting for the Wukong? You basically have to cut the Lee Sin to, I believe. No way in heck that we're cutting the Udyr. And yeah, once again, we're gonna fight this Fated board, and this matchup is so tough for us because once again, like, their board is so tanky. It's just so hard for Alune to one-tap backline when their backline is so tanky. Now that we have the Diana 2, we just say, okay, we're going to play for the Wukong here, rolling down, trying desperately to find Wukong 2. We can't find it. Ooh, and we roll this new item, which I wanted to do a video about, but I couldn't find a VOD of someone playing it. This is this new Shurima Sundisk, whatever it's called, item is just the most broken Ornn item. The stats on it are just overtuned. At 18 seconds, look how big Udyr gets here. He gets a ton of HP, a ton of extra damage. Yeah, the numbers on that Ornn item are just overtuned. So if you ever see that one, it is usually a pickup. You just need to make sure your unit lives to 18 seconds, which is pretty long. But if you can get them there, the game is easy. It's very... I've heard that it will be very good in like Fated setups. Just throw it onto like a Syndra. She'll sit on backline, live forever, and then do a ton of damage later. I've seen it on a lot of people talk about it with the Yorick hero augment, where the Yorick hero augment makes him super tanky. Put that onto Yorick, and then he's just gonna become a monster, especially because it gives increases your max HP. So if you have a ton of HP already, it feels fantastic. But yeah, we're going into our last couple of fights here. We get our Eternal Winter, sadly on the right side here, but we've rolled some pretty decent TG items. The Nashor's onto, okay, our TG items kind of sucked, but we do end up actually winning this fight. The crazy thing about this is we were losing those fights earlier, and that guy was on Syndra 1, which is so wild. It just goes to show how difficult this matchup is for us, just because Syndra 1, we were losing to, and now they hit Syndra 2, which is really, really scary. We need basically perfect positioning here. Also, I didn't really call it out, but I loved the cheese positioning that we did with the golden remover last fight, where we just put the sun disc on the opposite side of the enemy carry just to make sure that it lives as long as possible. Sadly, we get Eternal Winter on the right side here. We really need it on the left side here to slow down the Aphelios and the Syndra. And yeah, you can see with the Ascension, with the just faded tankiness, it's really, really hard for us to win this fight. We want to play for long fights, but they want to play for long fights, and they do it better than us. So it is a second for Dishsoap, but I thought this was a really cool game on a new reroll comp. Also, we got to show off all of these new Ornn artifacts, which are really, really fun. I can't wait to do more games showing off all the cool, crazy combinations, because there's some crazy ones with the new Ornn ones. We didn't even talk about all of them this game. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe, check out my Twitch and all my links down below. Thanks for watching. Bye. I gotta find the button.